Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Adam and Eve. Use the link in the description and code MIDNIGHT to get 50% off one item and free shipping in the US and Canada. Some exclusions apply. I know that when I talk about movies on this channel, I tend to focus on Hollywood blockbusters and the biggest studios, but in this video, I want to change things up and talk about A24, the movie and TV production company and distributor that has spent the last 10 plus years carefully crafting its image as the most daring and exciting name in independent cinema. Now, whether you think that's actually the case or the result of some very savvy online marketing, I'll leave up to you, but I don't think there's any denying that they've released a ton of notable stuff through the years, with a lot of it breaking through to the mainstream in a way that independent film distributors often struggle with, from bursting onto the scene with Spring Breakers, horror hits like The Witch, to last year's Best Picture winner at the Oscars, Everything Everywhere All at Once. A24 has become a respected brand name to be reckoned with, and is often used as an example of a production company that's doing things the right way. Which is why I think some people were startled back in October that, according to The Wrap, A24 is looking to get more into action and big IP projects. And they're, quote, de-emphasizing the traditional character/auteur-driven dramas. Add to that the fact that A24 just made a deal to stream their entire catalog on Max at a time when Warner Brothers is not exactly in the good graces of many cinephiles, and it's easy to see why some might feel betrayed. It's an interesting situation, and one that I think is worth discussing a little more in depth. Before that though, I will do the annoying YouTuber thing of asking you to comment and like if you'd like to see me cover more stuff like this. The almighty algorithm isn't always kind to channels covering new things, so it'd be a lot of help. But enough of that, let's get into it. So first things first, I don't want to sound like I'm anti-A24 by any means. They've produced and distributed a lot of stuff that I love. The Curse, which they produced, is airing on Paramount Plus, and it might just be my favorite show on TV right now. But I do think there's a tendency for people to talk about A24 the way they would with Marvel, like A24, the company, is the primary creative force behind the A24 movies and shows that they like. I get why people think this, like the way they edit trailers, especially for movies they're marketing as horror, tend to have a lot of similarities. There's definitely a distinct A24 trailer style and common things that they look for in the types of projects they're interested in. But I do find it a little depressing when people say something has like a A24 vibe as if there's some Kevin Feige-like unifying voice at the company, when what they really mean is a specific director's vibe. Something like The Green Knight is very different from, say, mid-90s, which is very different from First Cow. But the A24 branding seems to be so strong that their name will often come up before the director when talking about these movies, just like they would for Feige. I know this may seem like an unnecessary line of criticism. After all, the A24 branding definitely helps little-known directors, as audiences who have liked projects they associate with the studios will be a lot more willing to check out their film than they might have been otherwise. That's a good thing. But I think the flip side of that is acknowledging that A24 isn't like a cool art collective making weird and unique movies together. They're a huge business, valued at $2.5 billion as of 2022. And while I don't expect them to change overnight, it was inevitable that a large company would prioritize maximizing profits. I'll admit that I was a little surprised by the news that they were looking for IP movies at first, especially after Everything Everywhere was so successful, critically and commercially. It seemed to really validate their entire model. But it's also not shocking, because these kinds of movies are just a tough business to be in. The big risk is a movie like Beau is Afraid. I admire that they made this one, honestly. Ari Aster directed two bona fide small to mid-budget hits with Hereditary and Midsommar, and it's cool that there's still a studio in Hollywood willing to take a gamble on a director's big swing because he had delivered for them in the past. But while critics were fairly positive, without the genre marketing hook that Aster's previous movies had, it really landed with a thud in theaters. That's going to happen occasionally, and probably even fairly regularly when you're trying to put out artistically adventurous movies. Similar studios like Annapurna have put out some great stuff from directors like Paul Thomas Anderson, only to find themselves more than $200 million in debt in 2019. Ultimately, a huge element of running a successful business is trying to minimize risk, which is fundamentally at odds with producing truly boundary-pushing and potentially polarizing art. So of course, A24, despite their reputation, would eventually go in for what they hope are more predictable successes in the form of grabbing IPs and making more easily marketable action movies. Now to be clear, I'm not automatically saying these are going to be bad or anything. I want more great mid-budget action movies, and the idea of A24 producing some isn't like a horrible turn to me. If they do it well, I'd be thrilled to see those movies. The IP stuff is a little more depressing, but I'm willing to wait and see on things like their Camp Crystal Lake Friday the 13th show and see how it is. But as one of the most notable distributors of original movies and shows, it is sad to see them go down this road. Specifically, if that report is correct, that part about de-emphasizing traditional character/auteur-driven dramas. That's kind of grim because that's what they've built their entire brand and reputation on. Now, granted, I don't really expect A24 to drop the movies that they're known for on a dime. They haven't always been perfect, like I'll never completely forgive them for how they buried Under the Silver Lake, but still, they've produced just so much worthwhile work, and it worries me to think that the A24 of 5 years from now may not want to make an Uncut Gems. Look, I love superheroes, just like I love a lot of formulaic action and slasher movies, and I love pulpy, lowbrow stories that aren't going to be winning an Independent Spirit Award anytime soon. But I also love what would broadly be called art house cinema. And while it would be ridiculous to say that it would go away without A24, like it was here long before them and it'll be here long after them, they did manage to put a lot of ambitious young directors in the spotlight, and maybe even more importantly, introduce a lot of people to kinds of movies that they're not getting from incredibly risk-averse major studios. I think that matters, even if the cult fandom around the brand itself wasn't always my favorite. I think they've helped create a gateway for young film fans to not just the directors who they work with frequently, but the filmmakers that inspired those directors. Kurosawa, Godard, Nicholas Ray, and so many more. A movie like Paul Schrader's First Reformed is a great film, but I'd also be willing to bet that a lot of people who connected with it went on to check out Schrader's writing on transcendental style and the directors he's obsessed with, like Bresson and Ozu. I think that's the coolest thing about A24, the way that they've used very slick marketing to get people to check out films and film styles that may not have been on their radar otherwise. I'd hate to lose that part of it while only keeping the slick marketing. But what do you think? Do you want more action movies produced by A24? Do you think this Friday the 13th show is a good idea? Do you like the movies that you've seen from the studio? Let me know in the comments down below. Oh, and one last announcement here. The campaign for my comic Binary C did just wrap up. I'm really thrilled to have over 1,000 people want to check it out. That's just been amazing, so thank you. I'm ironing out some details right now, but those digital editions should get sent out later this week. I can't wait for you all to read it, and when you do, don't feel shy about reaching out. I'd love to hear your takes, and I will see you next week.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.